Good morning, world. Welcome to another episode of Xendependently Minded. If you are a new or returning listener, I hope you enjoy this episode. If you're interested in more content like this and podcasts in the future, stay tuned because it's only going to get better from here. And be a good friend, neighbor, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever, and share Xendependently Minded with everyone you know, and just be a good person because Xendependently Minded is the best combat sports podcast out there. So on this episode of Xendependently Minded, I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. One thing is just some speculation on my part, thinking about just talking about some potential matchups for Jorge Masvidal now that he's lost his first title shot against Kamaru Usman. He lost at UFC 251 a couple weeks ago. And I also wanted to talk about the upcoming fight card, which is pretty exciting fight card. It features Shogun Rua, I think, and Fabricio Verdum. They're fighting, I believe. Gustafson's making his... No, it's Big Nog and Mauricio Rua. I don't know why I thought... Yeah, Fabricio Verdum is fighting Alexander Gustafsson in Gustafsson's heavyweight debut. And then also Khamzat Chimaev, I don't know how to say his name. He fought actually 10 days ago, and he's fighting again because obviously didn't sustain any damage, so he's fit enough, and the doctors have cleared him to fight again. And obviously the main event, Robert Whittaker and Darren Till, probably two of the best besides Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya, of course. These are probably the two best middleweights. The middleweight division is starting to look a little more stacked and a little more promising, but I'll talk about all that towards the end. Just starting off, so obviously Jorge Masvidal lost his first title shot against Kamaru Usman. He got completely dominated. He seemed like he got tired, the middle of the first round. So probably had a lot to do with training. I know he had been training, quote unquote, for this Kamaru Usman title fight. But I know he wasn't working on his cardio that good. He wasn't in the gym that much. He was just kind of doing a little bit of pad work, helping some other fighters. I know he said that he wanted to not take time off, but not work too much, so because he didn't want to get burned out and then possibly have to step in for a title shot, do a whole camp, which we saw that didn't happen. He came in on 6 days' notice, which was pretty badass if you ask me, but he just didn't want to burn himself out, so he wasn't training 2 or 3 times a day. He was maybe training once a day, a few times a week, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Don't take my quoting, don't take it accurately. I'm just trying to remember what Jorge said. But yeah, he got dominated in that fight. Usman took him down multiple times. One judge actually gave Jorge the first round, which was weird, because he landed like 3 leg kicks, and then he got taken down, landed some elbows on the bottom. But Kamaru controlled him that whole round. He took him down a couple times, and then he just controlled the whole entire fight like he always has. He's a really strong guy. He's got really good cardio. He's big. It's hard to slip past him. And he's got a good chin. He can stand up. Obviously, Jorge has the advantage standing up in boxing, standing and banging, but that's not what Kamaru did. Kamaru held him against the cage. He stomped on his foot the whole time, and then he landed some body shots, and he took him down a bunch of times because Jorge got really tired and just didn't really look like he wanted to be there physically. Obviously, mentally, anybody wants to be there in a title shot in that kind of situation, but Jorge just got tired out and he got dominated. It's what I said was going to happen. It's what some people said was going to happen. I know the betting odds showed Kamaru as the heavy favorite, but a lot of people I saw were giving Jorge a fair shot, and I was not giving him any chance, especially coming off of I would have given him a chance if he had like a full fight card or a full training camp, because he was able to throw everything into his shots for 3 rounds against Nate Diaz. So we know Jorge is not someone who doesn't have good cardio. He has great cardio, and that would have made all the difference. I would have given him a better chance, and I'm sure that betting odds would have too, but on 6 days' notice, I just didn't give him really any chance at all to beat Usman. And Usman just showed that he's able to neutralize and just neutralize and kind of, I wouldn't say dominate, because he just really held him against the cage, and it's not a bad thing, but it's not like he didn't Khabib anybody, that's for sure. But it's a win, especially a title shot win. I'm sure people will appreciate Kamaru Usman after he's gone out of fighting the way people appreciate GSP now, because a lot of people didn't appreciate GSP when he was fighting, and now they do. So there's a lot of fights for Jorge Masvidal after this. A big one that a lot of people have been talking about that he actually turned down right away, or so he says, is a fight with Colby Covington. Of course, the storylines there, the X's and O's are there. They used to be best friends, used to roommate together. They used to train together in American Top Team when Colby Covington was still with American Top Team, but he's not anymore. So there's a big storyline there because there's a lot of drama. They hate each other. They talk trash about each other all the time. They've been throwing low blows at each other. Even Jorge's manager's getting involved. He's been talking about exposing Colby Covington possibly. But this is all stuff I don't really care about, the exposing part. The drama, of course, is what makes the build-up for a fight really crazy and awesome. Like I think the highest selling UFC fight of all time, pay-per-view wise, is Conor versus Khabib, I believe, because of that drama. I mean, people are going to watch Conor and people are going to watch Khabib no matter what, but the fact that there was so much blood between, such a big feud between them, and then all the history, and then Conor getting arrested, throwing the dolly, all that stuff, that kind of stuff will really make or break on whether or not a fight will sell or not. So there's a lot of drama there that would make a lot of money, and the UFC could always play with that BMF title, even though Dana White said that's a one-time thing, and I think it should be a one-time thing because it's not a real belt. It made the fight with him and Nate Diaz kind of fun, but it's not a real belt. Don't need to defend it. Just keep it at the house and leave it at that. We don't need another one of those events again. It's kind of lame. So Jorge and Colby Covington is a fight that I would love to see. I think I would like to see that fight the most. And then the next fight that I would love to see the most for Jorge is Leon Edwards, because everyone remembers the 3-piece in a soda line from Jorge. Leon Edwards was talking smack to him right after he fought Darren Till, which was like a double D-bag move, because one, it was in Leon Edwards' home country. He knows that he's invincible. He knows that he can probably get away with a lot of stuff. And then, it's kind of a triple D-bag move because he also had a bunch of his friends with him. So he's going to run up on someone with a bunch of friends. And then the third thing that just made me lose any ounce of respect I had for him as a man was the fact that Jorge just got out of a fight with a really good guy in Darren Till. He starched Darren Till and knocked him out, and it was a scary knockout. And that really set him on a collision course. Set him up to fight Ben Askren, and then he fought Nate Diaz, and then Kamaru Usman. So that was just kind of like a stupid sleazebag move for Leon Edwards to do. I've never been a fan of Leon Edwards. Even before that, he's not that exciting of a fighter. He hasn't gotten a finish since I was 2 years old. He doesn't have that cool of a personality. He tries too hard to trash talk. He doesn't try to be cringy, but he really tries to talk trash. He's kind of like Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades will go talk about how he's going to kill people, knock them out cold, and then he just goes out there and he sneaks by on the most boring decision fought. And I love wrestling, but the kind of fight that Curtis Blades had recently was whack. Every fight that Leon Edwards has been in has been whack, in my opinion. It was nice to see him get destroyed by Kamaru Usman. It's kind of funny that Leon Edwards thinks he deserves a title shot when, he's on a win streak. Cool, but so is everybody else in the welterweight division. Michael Chiesa's on a win streak also. So I would love to see Jorge Masvidal fight Leon Edwards because they have the beef, the drama, the storylines, the X's and O's, just like with Covington fight. But it doesn't have as much steam because, Jorge and Leon Edwards aren't ex-best friends and all that stuff. But there's still a lot of drama there. There's real beef, and having real animosity and beef in a fight, it helps. It helps, and you can't sit here and pretend that when two guys hate each other doesn't make a fight better. than if they're best friends. So I'd love to see Jorge fight Leon Edwards and kind of shut Leon Edwards' mouth. Leon Edwards he kind of fights like Kamaru Usman, but he's worse in every facet of the game. So it would be cool to see Jorge starch him and shut his mouth so we can finally stop hearing him talk. I really don't like him. I respect him as a fighter because he's a fighter. He steps in the cage, of course. But I'm not a fan, and I don't have to be a fan, so I'm not going to pretend that I am. So I'd love to see Jorge knock him out and just kind of derail that hype train, because his only notable victory recently, or really ever, was against RDA, and RDA's been beat by everybody because I think RDA's past his prime and he's not really too sure what weight class he wants to be in. He's been hopping around, which will do damage to your skills, your mindset, your mentality, your confidence. So yeah, congratulations, you beat RDA. So did half the UFC, and that's no insult to RDA. RDA is a legend. He's a very tough guy, really good fighter. But Leon Edwards doesn't deserve a title shot. There's quite a few people that I think deserve one in front of him. The number one is Gilbert Burns. He deserves a title shot for sure. And then the next up guy I think would be Colby Covington. He deserves his rematch, especially if he goes and beats Tyron Woodley. I think Tyron Woodley doesn't want to fight Colby at the time Colby does, but that's whatever. It's typical UFC welterweight banter. They all claim that they want to fight and then never actually goes through because neither of them sign or only one of them signs. It's whatever. But I would think Gilbert Burns is next up for the title shot. Colby Covington or Jorge Masvidal, whoever can get a win first. And then maybe Leon Edwards, if he can get a win over someone notable that isn't boring. If he can actually put in effort and not try to put everyone to sleep with his fights. But that rant is over. Another fight that a lot of people have been talking about. Of course, they're always going to talk about it just because of the star power of both guys. And that's actually something I wanted to cover, but I'll kind of talk about it in a couple minutes. But, of course, Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal. One thing I was thinking was that if, big, capital B-I-G, big if Kamaru was to get beat by Jorge, this would be a perfect chance for Conor McGregor to be the first 3-weight division champion, because Conor's at his best. He shines at his best when he fights people who are boxers or stand-up guys. He's never been outboxed ever in his career, except for when he boxed one of the best boxers ever. But as far as MMA goes, he's never been outboxed before. He's faced some good strikers. He faced Max Holloway, of course, when Max was young. He fought Dustin Poirier, of course, when Dustin was in the wrong weight class. But he's never been knocked out. He's never been knocked down. He's only ever been stunned a couple times when he was fighting big guys like Nate Diaz, who hit harder because they're bigger, of course. But this would be Conor's best chance, because if Conor was to fight Kamaru Usman, he would just get held against the cage, out-grappled, out-maneuvered, and out-wrestled. And it'd be like Conor versus Khabib, but even worse because Kamaru was a big guy, a big, strong guy. But if Conor was to fight Jorge Masvidal, he has a big chance of beating Masvidal, outstriking him, or even knocking him out, because we've seen Masvidal get dropped before. And that's just a fight that everyone will always talk about. But as far as star power goes, it would probably be one of the biggest, the highest selling pay-per-view fights of all time. But do not hype up Jorge Masvidal so much. I saw so many people saying, oh, Jorge Masvidal is on Conor McGregor's level, especially if he beats Kamaru Usman. I'll tell you this right now. If you go down the street to a store, just go to your Walmart, and you ask some random old lady who Conor McGregor is, she'll know who he is. She'll have heard his name. But if you ask her who Jorge Masvidal is, she's not going to know who that is. Conor McGregor is on another level of popularity. Him and Khabib are the two most popular UFC fighters in the entire world. Khabib, because he's got the whole entire Muslim fan base backing him, so he's got legit amount of fans and popularity. And then Conor is just known everywhere. He transcended past the UFC. He has a clothing brand. He's got his whiskey. He crossed over to boxing. So Jorge Masvidal is not on the popularity level of Conor McGregor. Not named Conor, he's probably the most popular fighter in the UFC right now. So that's a good thing going for him. I'm not insulting Jorge. I'm just saying people need to chill out because he is not on the same level as Conor, and people should stop pretending, stop getting ahead of themselves. But that would be a fight that would be cool to see. I would much rather see Jorge fight Colby, or Leon Edwards. Those two are the main two that I really want to see. And then I just want to see Conor come back and fight more and fight in the lightweight division. The lightweight division is where he belongs. It's where the best competition is. I feel like he has unfinished business there because he only fought there twice, losing one of them against Khabib, of course. And then the kind of fourth fight that people have been talking about, I don't think will happen. It's probably least likely because Nate Diaz doesn't know how to stay active these days, or just not throw a fit when he loses. Obviously, Nate Diaz and Jorge, a rematch, because I don't understand why people say that the fight ended controversially the first time they fought, because Jorge was beating the crap out of Nate Diaz. I think he won 10-8 every single round except for the third. 10-8. I gave him a 10-8 every single round. Possibly the second one be a 10-9, but Nate Diaz was getting absolutely murdered, and he doesn't get many finishes in the later rounds. When he gets finishes, it's a submission. He doesn't knock people out often, and I just didn't see him, after getting torn up so much, I just didn't see him doing anything against Jorge. If it would have went to decision, he would have acted like he was surprised that he lost, because he always does that. Him and Nick Diaz. And that cut over his eye was gnarly. His eyebrow was hanging off. A couple good left hooks to that eye, he probably would have lost his eyelid. All of a sudden, everybody on MMA Twitter and Facebook and Instagram became doctors and surgeons, but come on, that guy's eyelid was hanging off. So that wasn't a controversial loss to me. Yeah, we've seen worse cuts, but the doctor is there for a reason, to protect the fighters. So it would be a fun fight if we were to see them rematch, but I think if they were to rematch, and Jorge got a full camp, of course, he'd be able to finish Nate Diaz probably inside 2 rounds or 3 rounds. But we're probably never going to see that happen because Nate Diaz keeps retiring, throwing fits. So moving on from the 80 people Jorge Masvidal could fight, I want to go to UFC Fight Night 174, which is going on in a couple days. I'm a little sad about this fight because, well, for one, it was supposed to be my first UFC fight. I was going to go with my girlfriend to Ireland. It was going to be in Dublin. It was going to be our first time at a UFC event, first time in Dublin, first time in Ireland. Man, it would have been super awesome to watch. And then another reason that I'm sad is that Robert Whittaker and Darren Till are 2 of my favorite fighters. So definitely they're in my top 5 favorite fighters. I really like both of them, and I'm just not sure who to pick in this fight, but I'll make my prediction towards the end. But yeah, this fight's going to be really great. We were blessed to see this fight even happen. We weren't sure if Robert Whittaker was going to retire or not. There were some rumors going on with him. People are a little disrespectful. After a guy loses, he needs some space, and a lot of people are just making up rumors. I don't know where the rumors are coming from, but basically, long story short, Robert Whittaker came out and he did an interview a couple months ago and just said that he was burnt. He was starting to get burned out and he needed to take time away. He said he worked on communication with his team, not working too hard, not overworking, spending time with his family. And I'm really happy for him. I'm really happy to see him back. When he fought Israel Adesanya, going into that fight, I considered Robert Whittaker to be the greatest, tied with Anderson Silva. I considered him to be the greatest striker in UFC history. And then we saw Israel Adesanya completely dismantle him, so I think Izzy takes that spot. But he's one of the best strikers, one of the most feared strikers in UFC history, and I love that guy to death, and it was sad to see him lose, but I'm a bigger Izzy fan, so it's whatever. But Darren Till is a young guy. I think he's only 25 or 26. He was a little rushed into that title shot, got destroyed by Tyron Woodley, then he got knocked out by Masvidal, left for a little bit, and moved up weight classes. And I'm really happy to see him at middleweight because he's a big guy. I don't know how he was able to make welterweight. He's so tall, so lanky. He's got muscles, he's got power, He's got endurance and pace. And it's going to be interesting to see if Robert Whittaker can handle that kind of reach disadvantage. I don't think he's going to struggle with it too much. It's going to be one of his tougher challenges, but Robert Whittaker fought Jacare Souza, he fought Brad Tavares, he fought a lot of guys that are longer than him, and he used to be a lightweight, or he used to be a welterweight, so he's not the biggest middleweight for sure. This is going to be a really interesting fight, and I'm super excited, but also a little scared because I love both guys and I don't want to see either guy lose. But as far as my prediction goes for this, I really truly think it's going to go the distance. I don't think either guy is going to get finished. There hasn't been as many finishes in these crowdless fights anyways, but I just think Darren Till fought very defensively in a smart way because he'd come off 2 losses, 2 finishes. When he fought Kelvin Gastelum, he looked really good. His distance control, his distance management was really good. We saw him doing a lot of leg kicks, just keeping Kelvin Gastelum away from him because Kelvin hits really hard. He hits like a truck. He can put anybody out in the middleweight division, really, if we're being honest. But I just think it looks like Darren Till is possibly too careful. He's been in his head lately. He's always been in his own head. He's a young guy, but he's a great fighter, but he's probably going to get in his own head, and he's not going to know when to pull the trigger, and it's not going to do well. It's that kind of style and that kind of game plan does not go well against someone like Robert Whittaker, who is a seasoned vet. He's a young guy too. I think he's only 30 years old or 29 years old, but he's a guy who's going to keep coming forward. He's going to hit you with leg kicks, body kicks, hooks to the body, hooks to the face. He's just going to hit you with every possible strike you could think of. And if Darren Till's going to kind of not know when to pull the trigger, it's not going to go well for him. And I just think Robert Whittaker being more focused and not as burned out, he's taking time off. He said he didn't lose any love for the game. He got that hunger back, spent time with his family. He's got his head straight, and I just think focused Robert Whittaker can beat anybody on any given day. So I'm going to take Robert Whittaker here. I'm going to actually give him a unanimous decision victory over Darren Till. And just going over a couple, a couple more fights on this fight card. So the co-main, Mauricio Hua and Big Nog, they're fighting. I believe this is a trilogy fight. They kind of had to finish this trilogy off, but I wish it would have happened earlier because these 2 guys are old. Big Nog is 44 years old. Mauricio Hua is 38. They're out of their primes, but it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a little bittersweet. We're probably gonna see a retirement from either one or both of these guys after they, whatever the outcome is. It'd be cool to see it end on a sweet, classy kind of sportsmanship, sports-like, kind of honorable end. Just see them finish this rubber match with honor and respect for each other, and then just ride off into the sunset. Whoever loses won't be able to do that, but you get my point. So we'll see what happens there, and just a lot of respect and hats off to those guys for some great careers from both of them. And then coming down to another fight I wanted to talk about, the last one I really wanted to brush on was Fabricio Verdum and Alexander Gustafsson. So Gus is one of those guys with a lot of people say that he's probably the greatest light heavyweight fighter to never win a belt, or one of the greatest fighters to never win a belt. A lot of people say that if John Jones didn't exist, or if he fought earlier or later, same with DC, Gustafsson would be champ. And this is true. He is one of the best fighters to never win a belt. If you can narrow it down to one guy, he would definitely be up there in the top 3. Obviously, he lost. He got submitted by Anthony Smith his last fight. He just looked off there. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there. He looked like someone who was a little burned out, and he retired for a little bit. Now he's back, and he's up at heavyweight, and I think that's a great fit for him because he's fast. He's really fast. He's definitely going to be faster than 42-year-old Fabricio Verdum. So this is going to be something interesting. We know Alexander has been off for a little bit, but but his speed is probably going to still be there, and it's going to be something that is going to play heavily to his favor when fighting Fabricio Verdum. But Fabricio Verdum, if he's able to take Gus down, which I'm not sure if he'll be able to, probably doesn't have enough explosion to do it. Plus, Gus has one of the best takedown defenses in the UFC. If he manages to take him down, Gus will be in big trouble. So Gus is going to have to be careful, not be gunslinging and trying to swing every single shot. He needs to not make every single shot a fight-ending shot. He just needs to take his time, tire out Fabricio Verdum, use his speed, and just finish him. Finish him with a head kick or a knee to the body, something. I do see a finish coming, though, and I do think it's going to be Alex. I think Gus is going to win, but he just needs to be careful, not blow his load too early, and then not get taken down. And if he is taken down, just watch out for those crazy ground and pound strikes, and watch out for the submissions for sure. But that's going to end this episode of the podcast. I know it was a little bit of a long one, but it's been a while, and there's a lot to talk about, and there's more to talk about. Next week, I'm going to go over UFC 252, which features the rubber match, the third match, and the ending of the trilogy, and probably the ending of both guys' careers. The heavyweight championship is on the line between Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier. And then a little bit more down the line, I'm going to talk about the announced or not announced, not really sure, fight between Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya. So stay tuned, and thank you for listening.